Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Technically Something, the show where we talk about technology, creativity, tutorials, and gaming. I'm your host, Kevin Allen, and in this episode, we are continuing from the how to make your first logo video. And in the last one, I did some thumbnails, some quick thumbnails just to get some rapid ideas, and I finished on a refined sketch version that I'm going to now work on in Inkscape. So, Inkscape is relatively new to me, but it functions basically the same way as Adobe Illustrator, and better yet, it's free. So, if you're looking for a free alternative to Illustrator that's still pretty darn good, you should definitely check out Inkscape. Now, what we're going to do to create this logo is basically use shapes and the Bezier tool and some of the text options. So first, I'm going to start with using the circle here. And if you want to select these circles quickly, you can press E on your keyboard. And just think of it as E for ellipse. Now, as I draw circles, you'll see here that when I click and drag out, it can be an oval. It can be whatever shape I want, right? But if I hold Shift, what that does is starts drawing it out from the center of where I clicked and dragged. And if I hold Control, suddenly that snaps it into being a perfect circle. So I'm going to drag out just holding Control until I have a fairly large circle here. And now I'm going to go back to my select tool, kind of center this a little bit. And when you have a shape selected, something important to note is if you want to rotate it, make it larger, any of that stuff, you have to select it first, and you'll have all of these arrows pointing outwards. So if I wanted to drag it up, I could do that. But if I wanted to rotate it, and I'm actually going to keep it as an oval so you can see this. So if I wanted to rotate it, you click it one more time. And now all the arrows suddenly turn into movement options where I can rotate them or skew them in different ways, which is pretty cool. So now we need to see what the fill color and the outline or the stroke color look like. So on the right side of your workspace, you'll see some options over here. And if I click on the fill and stroke, all these new options pop up here. And since I don't have any fill color information on the inside of the circle, not much is popping up here. But I could give it a flat color, linear gradient, radial gradient, a mesh gradient, whatever sounds good. I'm going to leave this one empty for now. But you can go to stroke, and the same thing pops up. Now we have color. So if I want to, I could drag over here to change this. And in real time, you'll see now that the circle has the same sort of pinkish hue or red or whatever. You can also change the alpha, which basically makes it transparent in different degrees. Pretty cool. So I'm going to go back to making it black. But compared to my drawing, the line here is too thin. So if I go to stroke style, here I have width, and I could actually change if it's dash. I could do all sorts of stuff. I could even make it an arrow or whatever you want. But for now, I'm only focusing on the stroke width. So I'm just going to hit this plus, and you'll see that the more that I click it, the wider the stroke becomes. You could also just look at this and type in something. So if I wanted to skip ahead, I could do 10. And that's pretty close, but I want to try 15. There we go. Now we're talking. That's about the stroke width that I'm looking for. So next what I'm going to do is create another circle on the inside. And it's going to inherit the same characteristics from the last circle I made. So the stroke width is already pretty thick. But I'm going to draw this out, go to my move tool, and I'm going to put this as close to centered as I can. So what I'm going to do next is use this circle as a guide. And in order for me to see what I'm doing, I'm going to change the color of it to something a little bit brighter than black, because when I get my Bezier tool, I'm going to hover over the circle, click, and now you'll see it's showing a preview of where I'm going to go next. And if I were just to click again, it makes a straight line. But I don't want that. I want to curve along with the circle. So I'm going to click and hold and drag downward. And again, if I hold Control, it'll go perfectly straight. And then I'm going to end right about here. Now I can get rid of this circle, and I can go back to the same options that I had before. I can go to Stroke and plug in 15. And the cool part about this, since it's a vector, is you can go to your node tool over here, select a node, and you can make changes and adjustments to the curve however you like until it's exactly where you want it. Whoa, but that's not it. And since I've already created one circle, I can just hit Control C and V to duplicate it, and then I'm going to rotate it. So I click on it one more time, rotate it, and if I hold Control, it'll put it into a perfectly vertical format. Okay. And again, as you go, just sort of assess if you need to move this over a smidge or however you can to keep it laid out the way that you want. And what's nice about this is that it's a vector. So if I select it first and then go to my Bezier tool, we have these nodes. So I can click on the node, and I'm going to hold Control to drag out a perfectly straight line. And once I'm finished with it, I just go back to my Select tool, and it adds to it. So we're going to do the same thing down here. Select this, select my Bezier, and click on this node, and I'm going to go straight up until I reach about the center right here. Go back to my Select tool. And remember, this node tool allows you to affect nodes. So if you want to make this longer, then just hold Control so that it stays straight. You can drag it out a little bit further. And same thing down here. If I want this to continue over a little bit further, I can drag it over and then mess with this curve a little bit more. And this is the essence of using graphic design software or vector software, is making adjustments as you go so that your end design looks exactly how you want it to look. Either way, you see that it allows you to go in and adjust as you go. You can always change your mind and take a look at it and add stuff later. So what I'm going to do next is create this this sort of Bezier tool, pen tool thing that I'm going to put at the top of the circle. And I'm going to use the Bezier tool to make it, but I'm only going to draw half of it. So I click, hold Control to draw a straight line up, and then holding Control, I go to the left, and now I let go of Control, but I click over here, and then I finish where I started. So now I have a new shape. All right, now what I'm going to do is hit Control C and then Control V, and that just pastes a new version of the same object. But I'm going to go to Object and Flip Horizontal, and that just, well, flipped it horizontally. And now I can select both of them and go up to Path. And all of these options here show how we can either unify or cut out or intersect two shapes. And these are awesome options for really speeding up your workflow. So for this, I'm going to unify them by clicking Union. And see how it got rid of that central line? So now we have one shape, and it's perfectly mirrored.
One eternity later.
I think we're ready to go. So I'm going to highlight this whole shape, right click, and select Group. And what this did is basically put all of those together so that if I click off and click back on, now I select all of them at the same time. And I can transform them at the same time too. So this is really helpful. So I'm going to shrink this down. I'd say that's roughly where I would like it. Kind of skipping ahead just a little bit. What I want you to do, if you ever need to curve text along a path, is you can create a shape, a circle. You could use the Bezier tool to make a line. And once you're finished, you can use the type tool to type out whatever you want. So I'm just going to write 2020. You can also select the font that you would like, the font style and everything else. And if you select the font, then hold Shift and select the path, you can go to text, and right here it says put on path. And see now how it's on the outside there? So all I have to do is rotate the path until I get it right about where I want. That looks good. All right, so once it's in the position where you'd like, you can select the circle or the path or whatever it is that you were using. And I'm actually going to just turn off the stroke so that it's invisible. And now with the text, I'm going to add a stroke. And since it's black, that's fine, but if I increase the stroke here, that makes the text look just a little bit better. It fits in with the rest of the logo. Last but not least, if you want to change any colors, you can always go in and change the fill here, and I'll leave that up to you based on what you would like to do. But I'm going to change the color of my 2020 to be red. But what happened there? I changed the fill, why didn't the 2020 change? That's because our stroke is going over the fill because it's thicker. So if we go to stroke paint and add that stroke color, we can change that to red. Now we see the change. I'm going to do the same thing with the tip of the pen here. And if I double click, it allows me to access the objects inside the group. I'm going to change the fill so that red is all the way up, green and blue are all the way down. That's basically it. Now, once you're at the point where you're feeling good about your logo, it's time to save it. And if you're in my class, there's a certain way that I want you to save it before you turn it in. So let's go and do that. Let's go to File, Save As. Now from here, you have your options on where you can save it. That's up to you. You save it wherever you like. But what I would like you to do is do your first and last name, followed by a dash, and then the name of this assignment. And this is called my first logo. In terms of the file type, you have a whole bunch of options, but most of these are SVG based. Okay, so I just want you to keep it as an Inkscape SVG. It should be that by default, but if it changed for any reason, just make sure that you select Inkscape SVG. Once you have that, you're ready to go. Go ahead and click Save. And there you have it. And that kind of wraps it up for this tutorial. As always, I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Make sure to stay safe, stay positive, like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this, and I will see you later.